There's a good chance you are going to wake up tonight at some point between 2 and 4 in the morning. You will lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering why your body won't cooperate. Your doctor might call it insomnia. You will probably call it exhausting. Here's what nobody tells you. Your body isn't broken. It's remembering something. Something buried so deep inside your biology that no alarm clock, no sleeping pill, and no amount of blackout curtains can fully switch it off. For 300,000 years, your ancestors never slept the way you are trying to sleep right now. And the story of what they actually did after dark is one of the most quietly extraordinary things in the entire history of the human species. Let's start with darkness itself. Before electricity, before gas lamps, before candles were cheap enough for ordinary people, the world after sunset was a different planet. Not dimly lit, not romantic. Dark in a way that is almost impossible to understand if you have lived your entire life inside a city. The kind of dark where you genuinely cannot see your hand in front of your face, where every sound from outside has a possible explanation that ends with you dead. This was not an inconvenience. This was the condition of human existence for virtually all of human history, and then someone figured out fire. The oldest solid evidence of humans controlling fire comes from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, about 1 million years ago. But the real transformation came much later, as fire became a consistent, reliable nightly technology. Because fire didn't just keep ancient humans warm, a campfire creates a zone of safety roughly 30 feet across. Inside that zone, the predators that hunted humans, leopards, hyenas, African wild dogs, won't come. The light disorients them, the sound unsettles them. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups in Africa have documented that people who wander beyond the firelight at night are significantly more likely to be killed, even today. But here's what matters. Fire didn't just protect ancient humans from the night, it gave them something they had never had before. Time. Before fire, when the sun went down, the day ended. You found shelter and you stayed still. Moving in the dark was how you became something else's dinner. But fire suddenly extended the usable day by 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours. Think about what that meant across thousands of generations, thousands of extra hours, around a fire, together, every single night. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She spent years recording conversations among the Jew/Huan Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last communities on Earth still living something close to the original human pattern. What she found was striking. During the day, around 80% of conversations were practical. Logistics, who is hunting where, which plants are ready, arguments over resources. But at night, around the fire, everything changed. At night, 81% of conversations were stories, tales of people in distant places, myths about where the world came from, jokes, teasing, debates about things that hadn't happened yet and might never happen. The campfire was where ancient humans learned to think beyond the immediate moment, to imagine things that don't exist, to talk about people who weren't there, events that hadn't happened, futures that were entirely invented. Wiesner argued this is where a human culture was born, not in the daylight, around the fire, after dark, in the hours that wouldn't have existed without flame. But here's the part that changes everything. Ancient humans weren't just doing different things at night, they were sleeping differently too. In 2001, historian Roger Ekirch published research that had taken him 16 years to complete. He had spent those years combing through historical records, prayer books from the 1400s, court documents, diaries, medical manuals, letters between ordinary people, passages in Homer. He found over 500 references to the same thing: first sleep and second sleep. Before the Industrial Revolution, humans did not sleep in one continuous block. They went to sleep shortly after dark, they slept for roughly 4 hours, and then they woke up. They stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours, then they went back to sleep for another 4 hours until dawn. This wasn't unusual, it wasn't a disorder, it wasn't even something people commented on, the way you might comment on a strange habit. It was just sleep, the only kind anyone had ever known. What did people do during that wakeful gap? The historical records are specific. They visited neighbors, they prayed, they thought about their dreams while they were still fresh. A French physician writing in the 1500s recommended that couples conceive children during this window because both partners would be more rested and more present than at any other point in the day. A doctor's manual from the same era called the middle of the night gap the best time to study, to reflect, to think. They called it simply the watch. Historians had been reading these references for generations, and for generations they mistranslated them, because they could not imagine that anyone had ever slept differently from the way they did. The assumption was so automatic that ancient Greek and medieval Latin texts referencing first sleep were translated into language that made them mean something else entirely. Then science confirmed what history had been saying all along. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment. He took a group of healthy volunteers and removed all artificial light from their lives, 14 hours of darkness every night for a month. It took a few weeks for their bodies to settle. The first nights they slept 11 hours, evidence of how much sleep debt modern humans are silently carrying. But then, by the fourth week, something consistent emerged, without being told to, without any suggestion that this was the goal. Every single participant settled into the same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 2 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Wehr measured their biology during the wakeful gap and found something remarkable. Their brains were producing elevated levels of prolactin, the same hormone released during meditation, during deep rest, in moments of profound calm. Their EEG patterns during this window looked unlike normal wakefulness and unlike sleep. It was its own distinct state, peaceful, reflective, almost meditative, one that most people alive today have never consciously experienced. In the 1660s, under Louis XIV, cities began installing street lamps to reduce crime. Suddenly, the night was navigable, then came cheaper candles, then gas lamps. Then, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric bulb, and within a single generation, the night that humans had lived in for 300,000 years was gone. Here's what we didn't understand when we made that trade. The blue light from your phone at 11 p.m. looks exactly like daylight to your brain. Your body has no way to tell the difference. When that light hits your retina, your melatonin production stops. Your circadian rhythm, the one calibrated over millions of years to darkness at sunset, gets delayed by hours. Researchers have found that people who go camping for 1 week with no artificial light at all have their melatonin cycles reset by nearly 2 hours. 1 week. That's all it takes for 300,000 years of biological programming to begin reasserting itself. The ancient pattern is not gone. It is suppressed, buried under every screen, every streetlight, every late night ceiling light you have ever left on. So when you wake up tonight at 3 a.m. and lie there in the dark, unable to get back to sleep, you are not broken. You are not anxious. You are not disordered. You are not failing at something everyone else manages to do without thinking. You are doing what every human who ever lived did every night for 300,000 years. Your body is looking for the watch, the quiet gap between first sleep and second sleep, the window your ancestors used to think about their dreams, to lie still in the dark, to exist in a state of calm that modern science has only just given a name. We didn't just change when we sleep. We erased an entire phase of human consciousness and replaced it with the ceiling.